I would like to thank Jamal Ross for sending me this story right here. And you're looking at you probably noticed the caption more so before the actual person. But first, let me just go ahead and introduce the story. This person's name was Mason Hollebarger. I hope I'm pronouncing their name correctly. And he was an 18-year-old individual, and they said he died on December 4th. And according to the bit of the article that I am reading, it says that he committed suicide. Now, at the funeral, usually at a funeral, there's usually people who pay their respects. They talk about the memories, the happy times of, with the deceased. And then, the pastor gets up there and they give their word. But this pastor decided to go raw and uncut with his words. So he did not hold back with what he had to say as it pertains to the deceased. Because this pastor feels very strongly in his belief that committing suicide is just straight up wrong and it is a sin. He basically said that this kid or this individual was a sinner, and he probably said that he's probably going to go to hell or he's going to be condemned there. He may not have said it outright because he committed suicide right there in front of the entire congregation. They were probably looking up at this guy like, huh? Like, what would make you say that? And if that was on your mind, you should have let that stay in your head. But let me go ahead and read this article coming from CNN. It says, grieving the most tragic loss two parents could endure, Jeff and Linda Hollebarger expect the comfort from a priest's homily at their son Mason's funeral. Instead, the priest lectured the hundreds of mourners that suicide is wrong and repeatedly referenced the 18-year-old taking his own life. I looked at Jeff and thought, what is he doing? Linda Hollebarger said the Sunday. We had 5 other kids. Nobody could believe it. I looked at the parish and everyone had the same look on their faces. As the priest's words ripped open the Michigan's family wounds, Jeff Hollebarger tried to intervene. After the first few times that he said that word suicide, I approached the pulpit and told him, I whispered in his ear, Father, please stop. It didn't work. He didn't miss a beat. He kept going. He said that word another handful of times and made the worst day of our lives even more worse. The Hollebargers barely had time to process their son's December 4th death when they met with the Reverend Don LaQuesta to discuss what they wanted in the homily to be delivered at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Catholic Church in Temperance. We wanted to be about family. We wanted him to talk about loving one another, lifting one another up, and being kind to one another. That is what we wanted the homily to be about. But once the priest started speaking at the December 8th funeral, not one word out of his mouth was about what we asked and what we talked about. It was unprofessional and unacceptable. LaQuesta had not responded to CNN's request for comment Sunday, but the Archdiocese of Detroit apologized to the Hollebarger family. We understand that an unbearable situation was made even worse, and we are sorry. It said the priest will not be preaching at funerals for the foreseeable future, and he will have all other homilies reviewed by a priest mentor. In addition, he has agreed to pursue the assistance he needs in order to become a full, more effective minister in these difficult situations. This assistance will involve getting help from professionals on human, spiritual, and pastoral levels to probe how and why he failed to effectively address the grief of the family in crisis. According to a copy of the homily, LaQuesta said God can forgive even the taking of one's own life. In fact, God awaits us with his mercy, with ever open arms. Yes, because of his mercy, God can forgive suicide and heal what has been broken. But he also said we must not call what is bad good and what is wrong right. Because we are Christians, we must say what we know is the truth, that taking your own life is against God who made us and against everyone who loves us. Our lives are not our own. They are not ours to do with as we please. God gave us life and we are to be good stewards of that gift for as long as God permits. If you then it gives some tips about suicide towards the and then he goes on to say the finality of suicide makes this all the worse. Now you will have to work through this pain by yourselves or with those close to you now who will need to lean on you even more as you lean on them. Mace's mother says she had no idea the priest would deliver a homily so drastically different from what the family discussed. He basically called our son a sinner in front of everyone. We had no idea that he was where he was going with this. We've been a lifelong members of this church. The archdiocese said Loquaster was trying to offer a message of confidence and salvation. And I'm pretty much going to pretty much stop right there. You can pretty much get where it was going with this. So it sounds to me like, depending on how you look at it, it's like he wasn't wrong for what he said, but he was wrong for saying that at that time, especially if that's not what the family wanted to discuss. Like, any family would not want to have something like that be discussed at their loved one's funeral. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. But I would like for y'all to tell me what y'all think down in the comments. If you discussed with the pastor and you have a loved one that is deceased, and y'all discuss what, y'all kind of go over what y'all going to talk, what the priest is going to talk about, the pastor, and they go off on a tangent the way that this one did, how would you react to that in that moment? Because I'm curious to know what y'all think about that. Like, what would be your initial reaction? I don't know how I would react. I'd probably flip that entire place upside down, to be quite honest. But y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. The links will be in the description. I'll talk to you in the next one.